Old Man on the Bus by Carter Hawk. Okay, so this happened to me when I was around 11 years old. It was summer holidays, and me and my friend would always go in the bus and go into town just to look around and hang out with some other friends. We live in a nice town, not much trouble, but it's safe enough to be my age and going places on your own. Anyway, we finish in town and get on the bus to go home. As we get on the bus, it was absolutely jam-packed. I'm wearing shorts and a strappy t-shirt, as it is in the middle of July. The only spaces left on the bus was one next to an old man near the front, or to stand on the stairs, so my friend stood on the stairs, and I sat next to the old man. The old man had really thick, greasy, gray hair. He stunk of alcohol and looked like he hadn't washed in a month. Anyway, at first he didn't say anything to me, but then he kept smiling and started to ask me how old I was and what my name was. He then carried on, but it got weirder. He started saying how nice my legs were and that they were lovely and long. He then started saying some really inappropriate other stuff to me. I don't want to say it on this post in case it's not allowed. Basically stuff he wanted me to do to him. He then began to stroke my bare leg. At this point, I was creeped out and scared, so I stood up and stood next to my friend on the stairs of the bus. This guy pressed the buzzer, and his stop was next. He walked past us to get off the bus, and as he did so, he stroked my leg again and winked at me. I don't know why I didn't scream out or shout at the time. I guess I was just shocked. But yeah, that was the end. I never told my family or anything. I just tried to avoid going on that bus again, in case I saw him.
But honey, I am your mom, by Myrtle Wilson.
I don't remember how old I was, just that I was small enough to fit in the front baby seat of a grocery cart. That'd put us in the late 1990s or early 2000s. I was grocery shopping with my mom at a Costco. For those who don't know the chain, it's basically a huge warehouse where everything is sold in bulk. Food, clothes, books. It's basically a Walmart, but if Walmart sold cereal boxes in counts of 3s, or frozen dinners by the dozen. My mom has a habit of pulling her grocery cart down one side of the aisle in stores, and then walking the length of the shelves, picking what she wants, and then coming back to the cart and dumping what she has in the basket. I don't get why she does it, but hey, moms do weird things. So I'm maybe 4 or 5, sitting in the front basket, playing with my Game Boy Color, when she pulls over next to a fruit display in Costco and told me she was going to look at some different deals and that I should sit tight. I wasn't a very fidgety kid, so I said no problem. She was gone for a couple of minutes. I was absorbed in Pokemon, so I didn't really notice her walk up until the cart started moving again. Being a kid, I instinctively trusted she was the only one pushing the cart. I was wrong. After a moment or two, I caught out of the corner of my vision her red nails. This was a problem because my mom never painted her nails and never ever wore them long. I looked up. The lady pushing the cart was a little older than my mother, Same curly black hair, but pulled into a ponytail at the nape of her neck. I still remember she had tanned, Italian-type skin with thick red lips, a heavy coat of eyeliner, and brown eyes. She was pretty skinny. Her teeth were yellowed, and she smelled like what I didn't realize until later was bad BO. This wasn't my mom, and I said so very loudly. She laughed and looked around and pushed the cart a little faster. I said it again, and she looked me dead in the eyes and said, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact wording,
"Oh, sweetie, what game are you playing? I am your mom."
So the way Costco is set up, at least ours, is that in the produce area instead of the aisles, they're more like islands. They're large square setups that you can see the entire length of the produce section if you walk in that area. So, of course, I could see my actual mother a few displays away. As loud as I remember yelling, "Mom!" and watching her head whip around to look at me, right as this lady was trying to cover my mouth with her hand. I don't know if she decided I wasn't worth it because I was so noisy, or if looking at my mother charging from a few displays over. Side note, my mom is not a petite woman. She's built like a linebacker and played roller derby and softball through college, up until she was about 10. She's more of an ox than a human woman, but that's what I appreciate most about her. But anyways, this woman squeezed her hand around my little face once, and then booked it. My mom came running over to me and started asking me a million questions at once, and my little brain thought all of a sudden that I was in trouble for using my outdoor voice inside, because she looked so mad, so I started to cry. By the time she calmed me down, the lady was already gone, and reporting her to the head security did bupkis. The store never found her, and security cam footage showed her leaving, but never with anyone else. I don't know why she picked me, or what it would have been for her, but I'm just glad my real mom ended up scaring her away, and that nothing became of it.
Fooled by a fake radio guy. Buy here for Let's Not Meet.
I have been listening to Let's Not Meet for a week or so now, as my sister knows how much I enjoy creepy stories. The more I listened, I realized I had a story to share as well. Hopefully, this makes its way successfully, as I only created this profile on Reddit for this purpose. This was back in the early 2000s, when I was living in South Philadelphia. I was 17 and stupid, as you'll soon find out. I had worked at a Rita's Water Ice in the suburbs every summer for the last 4 or so years before moving to South Philly. I was able to pick up a job at a new Rita's there and quickly made some great friends. One friend in particular, Heather, was my dancing and singing partner on those rainy days when all we had was the radio and each other. We were listening to Q102 loudly, having a great time, when we got a call. I turned down the music and answered. It was a guy named Joe, saying he was from Q102 and wanted to hear about the cute girls at Rita's. I put it on loudspeaker, and my friend and I engaged in the playful flirting with this random guy. He promised to give us a shout-out on the radio. Within a few minutes of hanging up, we heard a strange interruption, and that same voice say, "Girls at Rita's." And it jumped back and forth, whatever it was playing previously. That should have been enough to know this was weird. Before we could even talk about it, the phone rang again, and Joey asked if we'd heard it. We said yes, said it was so fast, and he said that they were having connectivity problems. We believed him, and he said he would love to meet us. Heather jumped on the opportunity and said we could meet him together on Sunday. As weird as it seemed at the time, I figured it would be okay, since we would be together. Sunday came, and I was waiting at the spot we said we would meet him. Minutes before our meetup time, Heather called me and said she was not coming. I yelled at her that I was out there looking like an idiot and why she didn't tell me earlier. She said sorry and to let her know how it went. Needless to say, I was ticked and very nervous. I was about to just turn around and walk home when an old car drove up, windows rolled down, and this guy said, "Where's the other one?" Joe was pale, with small but thick glasses and red hair. Not at all what I expected, and I just figured maybe that's the whole radio voice thing people talk about having. But I knew something was off. I told him Heather was not coming, and I should probably go. He said he would love to just chat, and told me to get in the car. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why in the hell would you get in the car? But at that age, I was too scared to stand up for what I knew was best for me. So I got in and asked where we were going. He told me he needed to run home quick, then we could grab a bite of lunch and talk. I tried to ask him about working for the radio, but after all this time, I can't recall how he dodged my questions so easily, but he did. I never got my answer until we got to his house. Now, at this time, I didn't know Philly very well. I knew South Philly decently, but outside that, it was all very unfamiliar. We drove for about 20 minutes until we reached a dodgy-looking neighborhood of tiny, squished-together row homes. That is most of Philly, but in my memory, these were exceptionally small and creepy-looking. As my brain was telling me to do something, I followed him in the house anyway. Me now is getting sick to my stomach, just thinking about how stupid me then was. He opened the door, and that's when he hit me. To this day, I know nothing about the radio and how he did what he did, but his entire living room was covered with wires. His walls were lined with at least half a dozen tangled up wires, with several phones on the coffee table and sofa. I looked around in horror, realizing just how stupid I had been. What the hell was going to happen to me? Why did he bring me here? I knew I had to get out of there. He asked me to sit down, and in my fear I did. Then his mother came out from what I guess was the kitchen. Who the hell knew what their room's functions were, with all those wires around? She seemed so excited to see me, as if she'd been waiting for me there to get there. She started asking me all sorts of weird questions, like how Joe and I met, or what I did for a living. I'm realizing that Joe was probably much older than I was, because her questions were not geared towards someone who was still in high school, working at a water ice stand. Did she even know why all those wires were there? Did she even know what the hell he was up to? My brain was frantically running with all these questions. How many teenagers had he lured there before? What the hell was going on, and why did he bring me here? After about 20 minutes of his mom trying to get me to eat something and tell me about her life, while Joe stared at me from the sofa, my brain jumped into the only action it was able to conjure thus far. I have to take a call. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, I said as I ran outside. I started yelling to the non-existent person on the line, asking what was going on, where were you, and I would be right there. I walked back in and told Joe that he had to take me home immediately because my dad was in the hospital. He squinted at me, not sure if I was lying or not, and in the only burst of bravery I had that day, I yelled, "Now!" He jumped up, grabbed his keys, and headed out the door. I followed without even a nod to his mother, who stared at me as I left. Not a word was spoken on that drive. He asked me where I lived, and I instructed him to drop me off exactly where he had picked me up. As I got out of the car, he asked me for my number, but I slammed the door and I ran. I told Heather about what happened and how angry I was with her for ditching me. She said she was sorry, but clearly it was all innocent, and I was fine. A few weeks went by, and I mostly put it out of my mind. I went to open up Rita's one day, and the paper was tossed at the pull-down gate. I picked it up, and guess who I saw gracing the cover? Good old innocent Joe was arrested for luring teenage girls to his house by intercepting radio stations and sexually assaulting them. To this day, I don't know how I mustered up enough bravery to act the way I did to get myself out of there. Even now, I can't believe, with his intention set, that he drove me home with almost no question. Maybe I was the first person he tried this on, so my first reaction scared him? I'm not so sure, but I seriously regret not calling someone about it. I guess I didn't really know what to say, since nothing actually happened to me. I was 17 and stupid. I'm glad he got caught, but I hate to think what those other girls went through after me.
Chased by a non-jogger while jogging by Precambrian Wanderer.
About 2 to 3 years ago, during the spring, I was out for a weekend run along the river path in my city. It was about mid-morning, and seeing as there is a very popular restaurant and shops facility close by, this trail is fairly well used. This morning, there were small groups of people. Not overly busy, but thankfully busy enough. Otherwise, the following encounter would have been a lot more scary than it was. I'm partway down the trail, and I passed a guy walking, who I just ran past and said hello. I returned a hello. Shortly after I passed him, I heard footsteps close behind me. I glanced back, assuming it was another jogger, and wanted to make sure they had room to pass. Nope, it was the guy I had just passed, and he was running behind me. An important thing to note is that he was not in running attire. He was wearing jeans, a warm outside puffy vest, a scarf, and non-running shoes. I found him being behind me odd, since he had been walking the opposite direction as me, so would have to turn around and run behind me. So I sped up my pace. Well, he sped up his pace too, so I sped up again, and so did he. I might add at this point that he started sounding pretty winded, since I didn't know he was a regular runner, and I kept increasing my speed. On the third time of his catching up to me, he proclaimed, "Got you." At this point, I moved from thinking this was odd to being a bit frightened and unsure what his intentions were, even though it was broad daylight in a public place. So I yelled over my shoulder, "Please, leave me alone." He replied with a, "Oh, sorry," which I thought would be the end of it. But no. He kept running behind me, very close. We were approaching a group of 3 people walking at this point, so I started to jog past them, but did a quick U-turn right behind them, then yelled back at him, "Stop following me," and sprinted back past them the way I had come. As I had hoped, there was no way he could follow me now without raising the suspicion of the other people, so that is where this story ends. I've had a few bad experiences over the years, as I usually travel solo and do a lot of things by myself in my own city. But this was one that really made me wonder, what was he planning to do? Did he actually have ill intentions, or was he just mentally or socially awkward, and actually thought there was nothing wrong chasing someone? If it was a place or time of day with less people, would something worse have happened? I've thankfully never met him again, so that at least eased my mind that he wasn't someone stalking one of my regular jogging routes.
Alone in a foreign train station by Char Hops.
When I was 15, my mom and I took a trip to Germany and Switzerland to visit relatives. We are Canadian, and we also stopped in Italy for 2 days. We kept our Italy plans loose. We decided at the station to hop on a train to Milan. When we arrived, we felt a little lost in the train station and were dragging large, heavy luggage. So my mom left me with the bags in a seating area off to the side. The Milan train station is huge and busy, while she went to find someone to help us with accommodations for the night. There wasn't anyone sitting in the strip of seats, so it was strange when a man decided to sit 2 spots away from me, probably only for a minute or 2 after my mom had left. He smelled like the floor of a filthy bathroom that's littered with cigarette butts. I felt slightly uncomfortable, but didn't look at him and continued to wait. But soon, I could feel his eyes on me. I gave him a warning glance like, "Hey, I know you're staring, so stop," a few times, but he did not stop staring. I then realized he was staring at my crotch. I felt really uncomfortable now, but I had those big, heavy bags and didn't want to move in case my mom couldn't find me. But then he started touching himself, rubbing all over his jeans. A man passed by. The creep stopped rubbing himself. I was frozen. Then he continued when the other man was gone. To this point in my life, I'd never experienced such objectification and violation. My horror and unpreparedness allowed him to continue. Finally, I hopped up and pushed all the luggage as fast as possible around the corner, feeling his eyes until I was out of sight. But he was still close by. Now what? Then I spotted my mom coming down the escalator and burst out crying. My mom and I decided to leave Milan in favor of Como. That night on a connecting train platform, I swear I saw him again, following what looked like a school group. Not sure if it really was him, but I know that is what I perceived. Stinky train station creep, let's not meet again.